Hello and a warm welcome to Federal Special Program Capital Beat. Today there was ruckus in the Rajya Sabha over the Joint Parliamentary Committee report on the Waqf Amendment Bill. As soon as the bill was tabled by Medha Vishram Kulkarni, who's the BJP MP from Maharashtra, there was commotion in the upper house. Now, as soon as the proceedings started today, Mallikarjun Kharge, who's the leader of the opposition in Rajya Sabha, claimed that the dissent remarks had been deleted from the JPC report on the Waqf Amendment Bill, and he called it condemnable, he called it anti-democratic. And then Mr. Kharge also urged the Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar to reject the report and send it back. Calling the report fuzzy, he also claimed the statements of non-stakeholders are not included in the report. So is this something very unprecedented? And Mr. Kiran Rijiju then later on said that the conduct of the opposition MPs is condemnable. In fact, the opposition walked out of the upper house. So how does one make of this situation? Joining me now is senior journalist and political commentator Javed Ansari with us. Thank you so much, sir, for joining. We have Pushpraj Deshpande, who's the author of the book called Bharat Jodo Yatra, also works with the India Alliance closely. Thank you so much, Pushpraj, for joining. And I'll begin with Javed Ansari. Javadji, the very fact that this JPC report on Waqf Amendment Bill was tabled, and how come were the dissent notes removed? Because the entire commotion was on the fact that the opposition leveled allegations that the dissent remarks were removed from the report. Now, is this something which is very unheard of? Yes.
Well, it's rather unusual. I cannot instantly recall an instance where dissent notes have been either deleted, expunged, or not included at all. But you know, it shouldn't surprise us because this appears to have now become the norm, the modus operandi of this government: confrontation, my way or the highway, without any room for dissent or for a contrarian view. Parliament is all about discussion, debate, and for accommodating dissenting views. As it is, the government has managed to ram through this bill because it has a majority, it enjoys a majority in both houses. Therefore, it had a majority in the JPC, and it by the sheer weightage of numbers, it's their views which carry weight. The recommendations are only what the BJP wanted. None of the amendments that the opposition MPs had moved, not even half of them, have been included. So, I mean, that tells you the kind of story. It's had a very volatile journey in the JPC, and now even in the aftermath. And I dare say the last has certainly not been heard on this issue. I don't want to be a prophet of doom, but this could be a major, that could be a very contentious issue. And as it is, there are a lot of apprehensions with regard to this, to the contents. And once this becomes public and it starts getting implemented, we are headed for some troubled times ahead.
Right. So what happens now? The opposition has walked out, and Kiran Rijiju saying that the opposition was trying to mislead the House. If you look at his statement very carefully, he said that opposition is trying to mislead the House, and this is what exactly he said. And then Jagdeep Dhankar says, and he tells the opposition that, will you keep it shut? Now, does it mean that the opposition now will be forced to accept what is given to them, even though they have walked out of the House?
No, so there's been there have been subsequent developments. There has been a meeting, as is normally the case, with the presiding officer, the leader of the opposition, and Mr. Rijiju, the Parliamentary Affairs Minister, also the Minority Affairs Minister. And via meet, the government has agreed to include, by and large, most of the dissent notes tabled by the opposition, except for some portions where the speaker and the chairman have the discretion. They say, where you're casting as persons of the government, maybe those portions will be deleted and the rest will be included. I mean, it begs the question, why couldn't this have been done from day one, from the word go?
No, but
I mean, this is the confrontation thing. For the first time in many, many years, this session has gone off without a hitch. There hasn't been walkouts. There haven't walkouts, okay, but no boycott. Now suddenly towards the fag end, you want to do this. I mean, why?
No, but what does it show about the intentions of the government? Why on earth, if they had to include those dissent notes later on after all the commotion in the House, why couldn't they do it earlier? And what does it really show about the intention of the government? They thought that
Well,
opposition would not be able to make out.
it shows that that they do not want to put up with any dissent, that they do not want to allow any contrarian views. And look, there's a deeper intent. Couple of years down the line, a decade down the line, they'll be able to tell people, look, they can pass it off and say that, look, this report was unanimous, because there is nothing on record to show that opposition, that there was another view, that the opposition had put in dissent notes. So that will not be a part of parliamentary records. This JPC, all parliamentary records, their findings, their deliberations are all part of parliamentary record. Now this will not be, or this would not have been, until they agreed to this last minute compromise.
Right. I remember last time when this JPC met, and on one particular day, the opposition members were even suspended from the JPC that day, including Nasir Hussain and several other leaders who were present at the JPC. Now, do you see this, Javed, as a new low in the history of parliamentary democracy, where a JPC report is tabled and it's tabled in the House without a dissent note? And it's only after the allegations raised by the opposition and objections raised by the opposition that they decided to include the dissent notes.
You know, every day a new record is being set. So therefore, to say that this is a new low, who knows what day after tomorrow or Monday or Friday will bring in Parliament.
Right.
But yes, this is certainly not something to be proud about. I spent all my career as a journalist covering Parliament, and I don't think this covers Parliament in great glory. This certainly does not add to the luster of Parliament. And this will, again, as it is, people have very little faith in institutions left now. It will further demean this grand institution in the eyes of the Aam Janta in this country.
In fact, I'll come to you a little later on that question that, what does this bill do and how does it impact the Muslim population? But talking about the parliamentary democracy aspect, Pushpraj, I'm coming to you now, that the very fact that the bill was tabled without the dissent note, is this a very scary proposition today, what we saw in the parliament? Yes, TK Rajlakshmi, Senior Deputy Editor from the Frontline, also joins us. Thank you so much, Rajlakshmi. I'll come to you a little later. Yes, Pushpraj. Yes.
Hi, Neeluji. Very good afternoon to you and our panelists and, of course, our viewers. There are three aspects to what we are discussing. We are not going to be discussing the content of the JPC's report, because that is something that we'll all have to read right now. So I'm not going to comment substantively on the Waqf Amendment Bill right now and the import of that politically, electorally, and of course socially. That's not something that we're getting into. Here, the mere point that I want to focus on is the procedural aspect. Now, a JPC is constituted when there needs to be, when there is a matter of national importance, and you need to create some kind of consensus which requires the participation from both houses, right? If you see the rule book of Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, that's what it basically mandates. Now, the fact of the matter is, when you're setting up a JPC, there is some kind of intent of good faith from both sides, right? So if the opposition, for whatever reason, disagrees with what the executive is saying, and of course the executive in the JPC will tend to have a proportional majority, that's what the rules mandate, then it is incumbent on the executive and the JPC chairperson here, Jagdeep Pal, to actually include those dissent notes in toto. You do not amend them or summarize them. That is not the parliamentary practice. Now, of course, this is not something that is prescribed as a rule in either Rajya Sabha or Lok Sabha, but the norm, the parliamentary convention is that you retain dissent notes. You do that in any mature democracy. That is the standard practice. You do that in judicial, in judgments. You do that in tribunal reports. You also do that in parliament. Right? Now, the fact of the matter is, a JPC's report is not binding on the executive. You submit it on the floor of the House, then it is up to the government and, of course, the parliament to debate it. Now, given that it is not binding on the government, on the executive, it is beyond my comprehension as to why they would choose to remove dissent notes. Why do you need to create this chimera, this illusion of unanimity on this particular issue, when there clearly is none. You need to have that minority judgment, sorry, minority dissent note on the report, because somewhere on the down the line someone can pick it up even in a judicial judge I mean judicial order, and say that this is the rationale, the normative rationale as to why we feel that this judgment should go according to this thing. Now, in a sense, this is basically whitewashing history. That's what you briefly alluded to. You want to create the impression that we are unanimous in what we are doing. That's the first, right? The second thing here is that this goes to talk about the executive's track record in parliament. If you see, from 74% bills being scrutinized in 2014, it has now dropped to the low 20s in standing committees. Then of course the parliamentary sittings have dropped from 135 days per year to something like 52 or 56. I can't remember the numbers at hand, the number of days at hand. Of course, a number of bills are rammed through as money bills. On top of that, the government, and more importantly, the speaker and the chairperson are constantly colluding with the executive in sort of circumscribing the opposition. Even today, the Vice President Dhankar, with all due respect to him, he's openly and blatantly talking about telling the oppositions, "Will you shut it? Will you keep shut? Will you behave yourself?" I'm sorry, but this is unbecoming of that high constitutional post. You need to conduct yourself as a neutral, bipartisan umpire. And if you can't remain neutral in what is clearly the largest temple of democracy, then you're not fit to be in that chair. That is the first thing. And the second thing is that the parliamentary democracy is a rule followed more in the breach than in the norm. Given how the BJP has conducted itself over the last 11 years now, in parliament especially, it uses it as a bully pulpit to browbeat the opposition into accepting the unpalatable, and of course talking about using it to basically rubber stamp what they feel is kosher to their ideology.
In fact, several other statements of the BJP leaders are also coming in. Rajlakshmi, I'll come to you now. Union Health Minister JP Nadda has also slammed the opposition, saying that their aim was not to present their side, but to make numbers. And he goes on to say that the opposition is doing politics of appeasement. The opposition is against the report for political gains. How would you read this statement of JP Nadda?
Well, I don't know who are they trying to appease, but it's quite clear that that the ruling dispensation is also out to appease a certain, a very large section of this country's population. I mean, by such moves, and it's been quite apparent, Nilu, over the last few months, and we've also seen how, how the language in elections has been sort of subverted to an extent where this constant appeasing of the majority community has happened in this country, and it's very sad. I mean, because that kind of a degeneration we've already seen. So this accusation of minority appeasement is not. I mean, actually doesn't hold good. I mean, if the opposition expresses certain concerns about the undemocratic nature of certain decisions. I mean, why should one call it appeasement at all in the first place? And if those concerns are valid, and as they
No,
happen to be valid.
Rajlakshmi, it's not only he's talking about appeasement, but he goes on to further say, I'm just reading a statement. He's saying that these are anti-national activities. This is what Mr. Nadda has to say, that these are anti-national activities. Some people are fighting against the Indian state. And then he alleges that Congress has been strengthening the anti-national agenda. And the furious response from the Treasury came after, of course, Mallikarjun Kharge called the report fuzzy. Yes, Rajlakshmi.
Yeah. So these kind of responses have also sort of become pretty much standard, and it's ridiculous actually. If one speaks on the behalf of any community for that matter. It may be subject to scrutiny. It can be subject to analysis, but to immediately bring it down at the level to sort of label such concerns as anti-national has been the standard, the USP, or let's say like the modus operandi of the BJP. I mean, this is very standard, and it's and this is to, in fact, to obfuscate its own omissions, acts of omissions and commissions. For instance, by sort of removing the dissent notes in a JPC report, as Pushparaj was also saying, that these parliamentary reports are hardly, in fact, mandatorily. Are are not sort of incumbent, on any government to act upon them. It's not that governments have to implement the recommendations in parliamentary reports, and therefore, so why this hesitation, or why the diffidence to include those dissent notes?
Right.
I mean, these things are pretty much standard. I mean, if one sort of doesn't agree, you have the opportunity to sort of submit dissent notes. You can still have the committee still gets adopted, because let's say the majority opinion, goes in its favor, whatever it has recommended. But that shouldn't stop them from excluding the voices that have dissented with the findings of the report.
Right. I
Or
think
the
Pushpraj
main-
wanted to make a point. You were raising your hand, and then I'll go to Javed. Pushpraj, you wanted to say something? Unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I missed one point. But I said I had to make 3 points. I just ended up making two. The third point that I wanted to make is that, see, with regard to the chairperson and the speaker, rule in the rules of procedure and conduct of business in the Lok Sabha, Direction 91-2, issued under Rule 283 of that rule, allows any member to raise a point of order with the speaker with regard to remarks that are expunged. So that member can basically say that, these remarks were expunged. I'm appealing to you through the House, through the speaker, through the chairperson, to actually review why this should not be expunged, including in the JPCs or standing committees. A dissent note comes under this Rule 283, the Direction 91-2. Now, the point of the matter is that is what the members were doing on the floor of the House. The leader of opposition, Mallikarjun Kharge, got up and said that we want these dissent notes to be included. You need to do that as the chairperson of the House. When you instead attack the LOP and the opposition, saying that you guys are behaving badly, you need to behave yourself, you need to shut up and all that stuff, then I'm sorry, you are inviting that madness upon yourself. There is a method to the madness. And as I am sorry that I keep quoting this, but I would. There's no BJP member on your panel, but if there were, I would have referred them to what Arun Jaitley ji and Sushma Swaraj said, that disruption is a legitimate parliamentary practice. And why does it become legitimate? When the speaker and the chairperson of the House do not conduct themselves in the manner befitting that chair. So I think it's totally what happened today is completely the responsibility of the chairperson, the speaker, and the executive, and they need to take responsibility, include the dissent note in the report, and then let a discussion take place on the floor of the House. Back to
Right.
you.
In fact, I'll come to Javed now. And I was reading Mallikarjun Kharge's statement, what exactly he said. And I'm going to quote, and then I'm going to ask you a question. That he said that in the JPC report on the Waqf board, many members have their dissent report. It is not right to remove those notes and bulldoze our views. This is anti-democracy. I condemn any report that has been presented after deleting the dissent reports. We will never accept such fake reports. And if the report does not have dissent views, it should be sent back and presented again. Now, the last bit, Javed, what Mr. Kharge says, that we will not accept these fake reports. They have to be sent back to the JPC. Now, is that possible? Or like what you said, that now the government has agreed to include those dissent notes. So where does the situation, where do the things stand as of now?
Prima facie, based on what I've just read and heard, that the opposition and the government have come to an understanding, a compromise has been reached. Therefore, events have overtaken what Mr. Kharge said, or the last para of his statement. Events have overtaken that, which I'm taking this to mean that the government opposition has also agreed. Okay, you can present this report, but it must contain our remarks, our dissent notes. They have every right, and it was astonishing that they could even be omitted in the first place. But now that they have been included, the report I assume will then be placed before Parliament, and given the brute majority that the majority that the government enjoys, it will be passed in both houses of Parliament.
In fact, one quick question, Javed, and then I'll come to Pushpraj and Raj Lakshmi, that Now, in the present form, if there were already a lot of reservations about the manner in which the bill was brought in and the points which have been brought in, it seems to be, suppressing the Muslim community in every way. So, what is the fate of this bill now? Do we see it being challenged in the court of law, and these dissent notes will be used during the course of the judicial process if the bill is challenged?
There is a possibility. There's a very strong possibility that will happen. But this bill will get the stamp of Parliament, primarily due to the fact that the government enjoys a majority in both houses. It will be able to muster the numbers, and it will do it. But the consequences, the implications, and the fallout of this will be heard outside Parliament, and that's they are going to be serious. I hope to God I'm wrong, but from what I gather, from what I read, and my information seems to suggest, I mean, you all are open to contradict it if you have information to the contrary, that this is a source of huge angst, huge anguish within the minority community, and there are likely to be consequences. There will be consequences for this.
So you're saying that there will be consequences to it. In fact, for this very channel, I had interviewed Shahid Siddiqui, I think about 3 or 4 weeks back, when the JPC meetings were on, and at that time said that if this bill is passed in the present form, it will lead to a lot of civil unrest. But coming back to the politics, Rajalakshmi, how would you really see it now, given the fact that Bihar elections, of course, are not around the corner? They're still months away. But then, will this Waqf bill now be used for Bihar elections in a big way?
Well, I think the sections that are who are unhappy I mean unhappy with the way, it's not just sections, it's not the correct term to use, but I think many people who also do not belong to the affected communities also have a sense of outrage in the way that things have been done, because it's a very selective cherry picking of reform, okay, which is something that the BJP has done right from the minute it came to power. Whether it's the issue of the UCC, whether it's the issue of talaq, of triple talaq, and now Waqf, as if it has set upon itself this messianic agenda to reform the Muslim community, okay, which nobody's asking it to, okay, and if it should, then it should apply uniformly. So so the bias in itself is an issue for several progressive and secular minded people in this country. So it is something that goes beyond the community that stands to be directly affected by this. So I think its NDA allies do apply their minds, and they should be able to have a more, let's say this unbiased approach to this, when it, and also should be able to able to take forward the concerns of the, because obviously it will have an impact in the elections. There's no doubt about it. It's not, I mean, it's not that today any party can claim, okay, that we don't want the votes of that particular community. It can't happen now anymore. So
Right.
so if it is a tightly contested election, these issues are going to be issues. And as I said, it goes beyond, because everybody can see the latent bias in these decisions, the latent bias, the hubris in these decisions. So yeah.
Okay, so Pushpraj, I'll come to you for the concluding remarks, and then we'll straight away head into the Hindi live on the Federal Desh. Then, yes, Pushpraj.
Neeluji, taking from what Rajalakshmi ji said, see, this keeping the procedural lapses that the executive deliberately planted, which the opposition walked into, that is something that I feel was a strategic blunder, personally. Of course, I'm not, because the thing is that this bill, as many other bills, the CA NRC amendment bill, the Citizenship Amendment Bill, the Triple Talaq Bill, and the Waqf Amendment Bill, is nothing more than legislative dog whistling. That's what the government is doing. The BJP is doing this to pander. Whatever the substance of the bill is, I mean, frankly speaking, it might end up, I mean, you know how the CA-NRC law was actually rolled out. So my point is that irrespective of how this actually rolls out, the BJP is pandering to the most extreme regressive section that votes for it, possibly for Bihar, possibly for Assam and Kerala as well, which are the next 3 state elections of consequence to the BJP. Now, given this, at this juncture, for us, the progressive forces to wrangle about legislative lapses or procedural lapses in Parliament is actually missing missing the hoods, because what they are actually trying to do is signal to sort of mobilize and marshal their core vote bank, while we need to confront this head on. We need to talk about this from the point of substantive secularism. If we are genuinely a secular democracy where and it is constitutionally enshrined that minorities do have rights, then we need to practice their religion as well as to have their institutions. Then this is something that we need to tackle front on. We cannot sort of pussyfoot and sort of try to skirt the issue and say it could also be this, it could also be legislative procedural problem. It's not that. Think about this. You gave a 655-page report last night asking for a clause by clause discussion today. It is not possible for anyone, even if I have an eidetic memory and I'm supposed to read this entire book. I'm not going to read a 665-page report overnight and in the morning come for a clause by clause discussion. This is the BJP's classic tactic. They are trying to put put a trap for you. You walked into it and you actually ended up arguing because you were unprepared. This is a failure of parliamentary management. I mean, this is, frankly speaking, a parliamentary management failure. Because if the JPC members, like A. Raja has actually put out a letter in which he's substantively arguing why this is wrong on legal jurisprudence and constitutional grounds. Similarly, the members in the JPC should have taken it upon themselves to brief the respective parliamentary bodies so that today you are prepared to tackle this normatively, not procedurally. And in doing that, I feel that the BJP has scored scored a goal. And now, even if you include the dissent notes, as Javed Saab said, this is going to get passed by brute majority. They are going to do clause by clause reading, which is something that in the past JPCs used to do. We used to have clause by clause reading. So that's not going to happen now. So my question, the larger thing is, tackle this ideologically, tackle this on the constitutional grounds, and you will be much better placed in actually countering the BJP's legislative dog whistling, than the way you're tackling it now. Back to you, Neeluji.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll have to end it here. Thank you so much, Javed Ansari, G.K. Rajlakshmi, Pushpraj. Thank you so much. And we'll tune into the Hindi discussion immediately after this live. Thank you so much.